This program airs statewide on California Public Television and is a California's Gold classic. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association. It's a huge, beautiful mountain, and it rises up right out of the desert floor to a height of over 10,000 feet. It definitely dominates the landscape. Now, most of us see it as we're driving the 10 freeway on the way to Palm Springs and other desert cities. Mount San Jacinto is a landmark. It's also the location of two spectacular engineering feats, marvels that are recognized by engineering professionals around the world. And if you're curious as to what these two projects are and why they're so remarkable, well, all you have to do is come on along with us as we continue our search together, this time on Mount San Jacinto, for California's gold. Well, there we were, getting a bird's-eye helicopter view of this beautiful mountain. Lots of snow up there. And in fact, the top of the mountain is where we were heading. But we were a little out of sequence, because before we could go to the top, we had to go back down to the bottom. The early morning desert sun casting a glow on the big old mountain as we headed for the first engineering marvel. Now, this is one that's pretty well known because it's been used by over 5 million people since it opened in 1963. We're talking about the Palm Springs Aerial Tramway. Constructed in a rugged canyon, the tram takes passengers almost straight up the side of the mountain, literally going from the hot desert to the snow country. Now, this whole thing was the dream of Francis Crocker, who pushed for its construction for almost 30 years before he finally saw his dream come true. A dream that's been designated an historical civil engineering landmark. Now, before we started, you wanted to show me this model, and this is
the mountain.
This is the mountain.
That's right, and you are down here, okay, right about in here right now, and we're going to go right there.
Now, that is amazing to me because it looks like we're going almost straight up. This is like a sheer face of the mountain.
Correct. This San Jacinto is the sheerest faced mountain in North America. And this model was made for us by Desert Museum. We had a display there last year on the history of the mountain, and they didn't want the mountain model after, so I got it.
But it looks interesting because this is the sheer face over here. Over here is kind of the gentle sloping
Much gentle sloping on the other side. It's farmland and stuff and Hemet on the other side of the mountain. It all goes down into cows and pastures.
So why would they build the tram going up? That looks like the most difficult.
Because Francis wanted to have a great view when he got to the top.
I got you. And that's the view right there.
That's the view. As you go up, the temperature's going to get chillier. Can you feel it?
Yeah, oh yeah. Really getting chilly. Look at this.
Yeah, see? And everything's going to change. You left the desert with brush and sand, and now you're turning. Hold on.
Oh, wow.
That's only one. We got 4 more to go, and that wasn't bad.
I never had even thought about the sense of being a little bit nervous about this. I mean, not that it's unsafe, but just the sense of being, you're literally just hanging out over the...
Yeah, canyon.
Yeah.
I mean, here you are, and down there is, you know, rocks and trees and water, but you got to think about 100, 200 years ago. This canyon was the summer home of the Agua Caliente Indians. Every summer, the Indians would walk up here. There's springs here. There's waterfalls.
Down in there. You can see this is where the springs would have been, down here. Oh, look. And then looking up, we've got the window down, Louis, so you can get a nice shot right through the open window. How did they ever build this thing?
Major construction was done with the use of helicopters. As I said, the Valley Station and the first tower are the only ones reachable by road. Everything else, they flew up with helicopters. They flew 23,000 missions in 26 months to build the tramway.
So they were, all of these big towers up here were built
with helicopters. As we go past tower number 2, you can see one of the pads still up there on the rock to the left.
Off to the left, right over there, Louis. You can see it kind of perched out on the rock. That's where they would land.
Yes, we still use those pads for maintenance work in the summer. So they're still used. But it was a magnificent feat. I mean, nobody believed it could be done. They truly didn't. I mean, in the 1960s, early 60s, when construction started, who thought that, in 26 months this would happen? The Swiss experts had said it would take them 3 years to build, and there'd be 2 lives lost. There were no accidents, and it took them 26 months.
Were there people who said it couldn't be done?
Oh, heavens, yes. There were lots of people who said it couldn't be done. Francis was called every name in the book. Some not very kind in those days, some not very kind today. But he persevered for years and years. His only supporter was his wife, and Rosalie would smile and nod and go, Francis wants this. It'll happen. And it did. And we are eternally grateful.
What you looking at out here?
Oh, it's impressive. I can't believe how rugged the mountains are like this, rising out of the desert floor.
Have you ever been on this tram?
No, I haven't. This is
Really?
my first time, and I'm really impressed.
What did you expect?
I wasn't sure. I can't believe going from one land mass to the other in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
Just the difference is truly amazing.
Yeah, because we're in the snow country now.
Down there on the desert floor yesterday, I was in the swimming pool, getting a sunburn. And, it's great. I love it.
It's 38 degrees, and there we go, looking down at this is where we've just come from, looking down onto the valley floor. There's Palm Springs down there. We've come a long way up.
Breezy, isn't it? Nippy? A little
Oh
cold?
my gosh.
It's a little chilly.
This is amazing.
This is a little chilly. Isn't this great?
Now this is like being in another world.
This is another world. Completely in another world. On this side, you are in a state park with pine trees, with rugged wilderness, with snow.
With cold air.
Well, yes, with cold air. It's about 38. On this side, I think it's a little chillier because the breeze is blowing.
Wow.
Something, huh?
Ladies, you're wearing shorts.
Yes, we are.
Did you know it was going to be like this up here?
Well, actually, she's been before, so she kind of warned us.
So you've been before. You're wearing jeans. You brought them along, and your legs are getting a little pink.
Yes, a little pink.
But it's amazing that the desert is just right down there.
Yes, it is. It is
by the time we
amazing.
get down there, it'll be 80 degrees.
Yeah.
So, and you guys will be hot because you're in pants.
Absolutely incredible.
Had you ever been up the tram before?
No, I've backpacked this area my entire life, and Friday was the first time I've actually come up the tram.
So what do you think about the tram?
Get a pass and come up all year long because it's totally worth it. It's
Yeah.
incredible. What a ride.
You noticed coming up the tram what a contrast it was from Palm Springs, where they had 83-degree temperatures yesterday, and up here where the lows last night were in the low 20s. Some people are real prepared. Boy Scout groups, hiking groups, they tend to be well prepared and come up with snowshoes and equipment. But we also see a lot of people from Palm Springs coming up with short skirts and stiletto heels. We call those one-point crampons.
You're kidding. They really come up that unprepared.
They keep us fairly busy in the wintertime. We can run as many as 5 emergency calls a day with people who are unprepared.
So people just get up here and don't realize what they've gotten themselves into.
Sitting at the pool in Palm Springs looking up at the mountain, a lot of people have no idea.
What's amazing up here is that the tram, in such a short span of minutes, literally brings you from one ecosystem to another.
You actually travel through 4 different ecosystems to get to where you're standing. It's like driving almost 1,000 miles north. That same change would take place.
4 ecosystems during the tram ride?
You bet. You go from the lower Sonoran Desert right up here to the edge of the Arctic fringe and the coniferous forest.
This is the edge of the Arctic fringe?
Not quite the edge of the Arctic fringe. You go up to the summit, and that's where tree line is, and that's where you get to the edge of that.
Because this really does. This looks like something from Northern California.
This environment is very, very similar to the Sierra Nevada mountains, with the kind of trees and the animals that you'd find there.
So is the idea of the tram bringing people up through that many ecosystems that quickly, it's really kind of unique anywhere, isn't it?
It's, as far as I know, it's unique anywhere in the United States. This mountain is very precipitous. It gains a lot of altitude very quickly. We're surrounded by faults, and this mountain was literally pushed straight up in the air.
So there's no other place in the United States that you can start in the desert, get on a tram and ride for 12 minutes and be almost on the Arctic fringe.
That's exactly correct.
Now, we had a great time on top of Mount San Jacinto, but in order to continue our adventure, we had to leave all that snow and go back down to the desert. We were heading for the site of the second engineering marvel connected with the mountain, an obscure and little-known connection that involves water and California history. Back in the 1930s, the Metropolitan Water District constructed a 242-mile aqueduct across the Mojave Desert, an aqueduct that brought water from the Colorado River to supply cities and towns throughout Southern California. It was a huge engineering project, bringing all that water all that distance, especially when you consider what the engineers had to do when the aqueduct reached Mount San Jacinto. Because, believe it or not, they decided to dig a tunnel through the mountain, a 13-mile tunnel through solid rock. On normal days, over 1 billion gallons of water pass through this tunnel. But every 5 or 6 years, the MWD people shut it off and inspect the tunnel. We were invited to come along on this inspection trip, and there was excitement in the air as we set out to explore this wonderful, seldom-seen part of Mount San Jacinto. Well, we are actually going down into a place that really most people don't even know exists.
Huell, I would guess that over the past 50 years there have been fewer than 500 people that have had an opportunity to go into this tunnel and see it.
And it is literally right under the mountain. There's the mountain right up there.
It's a 13-mile tunnel that goes right under the northern edge of Mount San Jacinto.
Now this has been here, this entrance has been here since the 30s?
This was built in 1932, and the entrance itself, the tunnel itself, was about a 6-year construction project from 1933 to 1939.
Oh wow, look at this. This is wonderful. And it was wonderful. I mean, this was exciting. We loaded up on a little tractor-pulled wagon for what turned out to be a 3-hour adventure inside the mountain. A mountain that was full of surprises. Oh, you can actually see on the side of the tunnel where the water has left its mark.
That's right, and you can see up at the top there the 2 tracks, and that would be as high as it ever got. So even at its highest flow, you've still got a couple of inches of air at the top of the tunnel.
I got you. Now, is this all we're going to see? Are we just going to be driving through something like this for 13 miles?
Well, it's going to look like this for 13 miles, yes. But there are some features once we get a little deeper inside the tunnel. It goes up, it comes down. There are some construction adits off to the left and to the right. We also need to watch for stalactites, which is calcium carbonate, which has come in and formed on the roof of the tunnel here. It's also going to get real wet. We're at the low end of the tunnel, keep that in mind. And as we move through it and get closer to the Hemet side of Mount San Jacinto, we are going to see more water and you will see some of the areas where the original miners back in the 30s had to tunnel into this tunnel from the side and from the top in order to complete construction of this tunnel.
Okay, our first stop, and this is a significant one. This water is really part of the story of this tunnel.
Yes, it is. Huell, what we have here, what you see is groundwater that started out as rain and snowmelt on top of Mount San Jacinto. It's worked this, which is about 10,000 feet above us. It's worked its way all the way down to the tunnel, and the pressure obviously outside the tunnel is greater than it is inside the tunnel, and the water enters the tunnel. This is a relatively small intrusion. We're going to see a lot more water than this a little further on down the stream. We're about 3 miles into the tunnel at this stage of the game.
So this is all groundwater from the mountain above us.
That's correct.
You got a lot of water here.
Yeah, you'll see.
Sir,
Asiatic clams in here come from the river.
you got clams in here?
Well, this is from the Colorado River, because that's the origin of the water, and they have these small Asiatic clams that are on the river, and they're really a pain in the neck for us to deal with. But you'll see them scattered throughout here. They show up at our treatment plants, and we have to pull them out.
So this little clam has come all the way from the Colorado River.
That's right. He's made, we're about roughly 220 aqueduct miles from the river, and this little clam made that trip.
And look, there are a lot of little clams in here.
They come from the East Coast.
Look at that.
This part of the trip always reminds me of canoeing down a serene stream, and off in the far, far distance you hear this muffled roar, and as you continue going down the stream it gets louder and louder, and you go, what the heck is that? And you don't realize until you're on top of it that it's a waterfall, and that's exactly where we're headed.
Oh boy, here's the sound.
This is a major incursion into the tunnel of water. We're about 30, 40 yards away from it, and we've got it looks like a fire hose when you get up there, and it's coming out at about 180 pounds pressure, pounds per square inch pressure.
So look at this thing. It's just shooting across the tunnel.
Not only that, it's been doing this for 50 years.
Oh my gosh. If you were to get hit by that water, it'd knock you over.
Oh, actually, you can put your hand in it. Come here. It would knock you over, though.
And now we're going to what they call the car wash. What are we going to see, James?
I didn't hear you.
This is the car wash down here?
This is the car wash we're coming to. That'll be the next big area where we've got that kind of water, that amount of water coming into the tunnel.
Well, let's stand here and talk about this for a minute. This water is what the fellas who made this tunnel kept coming up against all the time.
Absolutely, Huell. And the nice thing right now is because we've got an engineered tunnel, we've got concrete, we can control it somewhat. But remember, when the hard rock miners were coming through here, all they had was raw rock. So when they hit water unexpectedly, they could have flows of up to 15,000 gallons a minute. One of them, that I recall, was over 40,000 gallons a minute. They hit a spring and it just exploded.
So the idea would be that when these guys were down here drilling, they never knew when they were going to hit one of these big, what do you call them?
Well, call it a geyser, call it a spring. Essentially, they would do surveys and they would do drilling to find out where the groundwater was, but that wasn't very precise. So they knew where some of it was, but every once in a while, they'd hit a pocket like this that was completely unknown to them. We had one event where we had 40 or 50 miners working here in the tunnel, and fortunately they were near an 800-foot vertical tube that went up to the outside. As they mined through, they hit one of these springs, and the tunnel began filling up very rapidly with water. Those 40 guys scrambled out of here. Now remember, 800 feet above this, the last guy out had water up to his waist. as he got out at the top of the tunnel.
Well, the water was rising that fast.
At 40,000 gallons a minute, it was rising very rapidly.
Wow. Well, let's go down here.
We've got about between 120 and 130 pounds per square inch coming out here. But there's no way around it. You got to walk through it.
How are we going to get our camera through there?
Hopefully we've got enough plastic bags that we're going to be okay. But as you can tell, from the people walking there now, you're going to get wet. There's no two ways about it.
Look at this. This is amazing. And this has been coming up like this since the tunnel was initially built.
Yeah, it's been coming up like this for 50 or 60 years. But imagine, if you will, that you're a hard rock miner. You're a hard rock miner. All you have is a wall of rock in front of you. You've dug about 4 miles this way or so from the last adit, and you're blasting and digging and mucking, and there are about 30 of you in here working, and all of a sudden, boom, you punch through a solid part of the granite mountain, and this water just comes gushing out at you. It had to be a frightening event.
So the miners never knew when they were digging when they were going to hit something like this, and it was just going to come shooting out like that.
That's exactly right. They knew where some of it was, but they didn't know where all of it was.
And look, we're standing way above ankle deep in this water right now. And this is, since the water is cut off coming in here, every bit of this water is spring water that's come in this tunnel.
That's right. We've got the Colorado River aqueduct, which normally feeds this tunnel. That's shut off about 70 miles north of here, so it's dry. There's nothing coming into this tunnel other than the natural water that you see coming in here. Wow. Pretty good flow. This is maybe 500,000 gallons a day right here. And the last one we saw was probably more like a million. A lot of water comes into this tunnel just from the groundwater traveling its way down Mount San Jacinto.
Now wait a minute, how are we going to get through? Can we carry this through?
This is okay.
All right, I'm going to let you carry that. I'm going to put the mic up underneath my coat. And Louis, we're just going to run through. We'll see you later, because Louis is going to have to wrap his camera in a hefty bag and try to get it through. Our camera does not like water.
I can understand that.
All right.
Good luck, Louis.
Here we go. Okay, we're on the other side, Louis. Wrap it up and come on through. Why did they come through the mountain instead of going around it?
That's a good question. The answer, actually, when you think about it, is pretty obvious. When you're moving large quantities of water, and this tunnel can carry a little over 1 billion gallons of water a day, you want to have to pump that water as little as possible because pumping takes energy. And what that means is that you want to follow the contour of the land as best you can. So any other way around this mountain would have required pumping. So by them tunneling through the mountain and leaving a nice even hydraulic grade that allowed the water to flow downhill by gravity, the people that put this structure together, the people that designed it, the people that engineered it, have saved people today a lot of money in energy costs because we don't have to pump it up to move it through this mountain.
This tunnel is not a round tunnel.
It is not round, it's horseshoe shaped, gives us a little extra strength at the top, but it also allowed for the laying of tracks down in the bottom so that we could get the equipment in and get the rock and muck out, and then the tracks were later removed.
So there used to be tracks right down here.
There were tracks down here for construction.
And this is interesting too, Louis. Listen, there's an echo here. Hello? Hello?
Speaking of railroads, this tunnel is a little over 13 miles long. Between here and the Colorado River, we've actually got about a little over 90 miles of tunnel that was done, again, during the Depression years with a workforce. And that represents more tunnels than all of the railroad tunnels in the United States.
And the next time we turn on our water, we'll have a little bit more of an appreciation of where it comes from.
Well, certainly if anyone in Metropolitan Water District service area, which extends all the way from Ventura down to the Mexican border and out into Riverside and San Bernardino counties, this is one source of water. It traveled 220 miles, 230 miles to get here. It's got another 10 or 20 miles to go before it reaches our terminal reservoir. Then it goes to treatment plants. Then it goes into an internal distribution system. Then it shows up at your house. Getting water into Southern California is a complicated and difficult job, and I'll tell you, the people who built this tunnel back in the 30s are heroes, absolute heroes.
Yeah, in a way it's kind of poignant to think that this is exactly where they were working for so many years to bring water to all of us today.
And what we just did in about 3 hours took them about 6 years.
Well, we did it. We saw two engineering wonders, one on the top and one inside Mount San Jacinto. And I think after this adventure, we'd all agree both the Palm Springs Aerial Tramway and the San Jacinto Tunnel are fine examples of California's gold. Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Howser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you'd like to see it again or share it with your family or friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.